He was just another passenger until she spilled water on the wrong man. On a luxurious flight from San Francisco to Paris, Damien West appeared quietly in seat 1A, unnoticed by most. But behind his casual attire was a billionaire and the secret owner of AeroLux Airlines. Jessica Harper, a proud flight attendant with hidden prejudices, saw only his appearance, not his true power, and chose humiliation. She had no idea her actions would ignite a storm of truth, accountability, and redemption. This is the shocking story of arrogance confronted, dignity reclaimed, and the unforgettable lesson that respect is never negotiable. The silence in the AeroLux Airlines first-class cabin was palpable. Damien West settled into the plush, cream-colored seat labeled 1A with quiet elegance. To those around him, he appeared just another passenger, well-groomed, but dressed casually in dark jeans and a simple navy sweater. Yet beneath his calm exterior was a wealth of experience, authority, and a fierce determination to quietly observe. The gentle hum of the jet's engines filled the cabin as passengers boarded. Damien's gaze drifted thoughtfully toward the window, observing the bustling tarmac of San Francisco International Airport. The trip to Paris tonight was more than just travel. It was a test, an anonymous assessment of his airline's famed service. AeroLux Airlines was his prized creation, the pinnacle of luxury travel he'd meticulously built from scratch. Yet, he had never publicly revealed himself as its owner, choosing instead to observe unseen, shaping perfection from behind a curtain of anonymity. Nearby, Jessica Harper adjusted her uniform jacket, her sharp eyes scanning the manifest. As senior flight attendant, Jessica carried her authority like a shield, unyielding and cold. She prided herself on her selective clientele. An unspoken rule book, shaped by years of serving wealthy elites. Tonight, her eyes lingered skeptically on Damien's casual appearance. Jessica leaned discreetly toward her junior colleague, Mia Collins, whose youthful face showed an obvious discomfort at Jessica's pointed stare. "Did you see him?" Jessica whispered with a hint of disdain, her voice smooth, yet edged with condescension. "I swear people are losing their sense of place these days. First class isn't meant for everyone." Mia glanced at Damien uneasily. "His ticket seems legitimate, Jessica. Checked it myself." Jessica's lips pressed into a thin, dismissive smile. "Well, let's just hope he understands what it takes to fly AeroLux," she replied cryptically. Damien sensed their whispers and allowed a subtle sigh. He had encountered countless forms of subtle prejudice throughout his life, veiled skepticism that often emerged from beneath polite smiles and professional courtesies. Today, though, he would wait patiently. Today, he'd let events unfold naturally. The plane smoothly left the ground, climbing steadily through the clouds. Service began, and Jessica moved efficiently from passenger to passenger, her demeanor impeccably polite, attentive, until she reached seat 1A. Damien noticed immediately as Jessica's posture stiffened slightly, a practiced smile briefly flickering to an insincere mask. "Sir, something to drink?" she asked, her voice clipped, distant. "Water, please." "Thank you," Damien responded calmly, eyes meeting hers. Jessica hesitated, her hand trembling slightly with irritation as she poured the glass. Suddenly, as if choreographed by hidden animosity, the aircraft jostled gently, and Jessica's hand lurched forward, deliberately tilting the glass. Cold water splashed onto Damien's sweater, a dark stain instantly blooming. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir." Jessica feigned surprise, her voice oddly hollow, devoid of sincerity. A few passengers turned to look, sensing tension. Damien did not flinch nor raise his voice. Instead, he looked up at her calmly, his eyes holding a quiet but unmistakable authority. "You've just made a very significant mistake," he said softly, his tone carrying the weight of deeper consequences. Jessica laughed dismissively, confident no one else heard the quiet warning. "I'm sure it's nothing serious, just a minor inconvenience, right?" Damien's gaze held her firmly, unyieldingly. "For your sake, Jessica, I hope you're right." At the front of the cabin, Mia Collins watched nervously, her instincts screaming at her about the wrongness unfolding. She'd seen Jessica's subtle discriminations before, whispered complaints from passengers, but never something this brazen. Troubled, Mia hurried toward the cockpit door, slipping quietly inside. Captain Samuel Griffin, a seasoned pilot known for his integrity, turned in surprise as Mia entered. "Something wrong, Mia?" Her voice was low, urgent. "Captain Griffin, we might have a serious problem." Jessica deliberately spilled water on the passenger in 1A. Griffin frowned, checking his manifest discreetly. His expression shifted dramatically. "Did you say seat 1A?" "Yes," Mia replied hesitantly, noting Griffin's reaction. "Is everything all right?" Captain Griffin's face paled slightly. "That passenger is Damien West," he whispered sharply, "the owner of AeroLux Airlines." Mia's eyes widened, a wave of realization washing over her. "Oh my God!" The captain straightened decisively, his voice firm and authoritative. "Return to the cabin calmly. I'll address this directly." Meanwhile, in seat 1A, Damien calmly dabbed at the wet stain, his thoughts clear, composed. He reflected on Jessica's disdain, the petty cruelty she'd shown so openly, ignorant of who she had chosen to humiliate. But this moment was not about revenge. It was about accountability, clarity, and the unwavering belief that dignity should never be negotiable. Suddenly, the cockpit door opened. Captain Griffin strode purposefully into the cabin, the passengers instantly sensing gravity in his presence. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with a voice of unmistakable authority, quieting murmurs instantly. "I must inform you of something important." His eyes found Damien, offering a respectful nod. "Tonight, we have the distinct honor of welcoming on board our airline's owner, Damien West." Jessica's heart stopped cold, realization and dread flooding through her in a single, overwhelming wave. Her face turned stark white as murmurs filled the cabin. Mia watched silently, sensing justice unfolding at last. Captain Griffin continued firmly, his tone unflinching. "Unfortunately, it appears that certain behaviors exhibited tonight do not reflect AeroLux's standards. Jessica, you will step away from your duties immediately. Mia, please assume control of cabin service." Jessica tried to speak, her voice trembling with shock. "Captain, there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, Jessica," Damien interrupted quietly, standing slowly, his presence suddenly expansive, commanding respect from every passenger. "You've clearly demonstrated the core of your character tonight. Discrimination, subtle or overt, has no place aboard my airline." Jessica stared silently, finally comprehending the magnitude of her misjudgment. Her authority, her confidence, all evaporated in the presence of quiet, undeniable power. Damien addressed the cabin calmly, his voice resonating with conviction. "I built AeroLux to uphold one uncompromising principle: every passenger deserves respect, regardless of appearance, race, or background. Tonight, this principle has been violated openly, and it will be corrected." The cabin remained hushed, passengers utterly captivated by the unfolding drama. Mia moved swiftly to reassure passengers, taking control calmly and professionally. Jessica silently retreated, pride shattered, facing consequences she never imagined possible. Jessica sat alone in the small crew seat, feeling isolated despite being surrounded by people. Her hands trembled slightly. Had she truly allowed arrogance to blind her so completely? Damien's quiet but powerful rebuke echoed repeatedly in her ears. The chilling realization came slowly. She wasn't just humiliated. She had humiliated herself. Damien returned to his seat, dignity intact, his resolve stronger than ever. Tonight had become more than just an inspection. It was a vivid reminder of why AeroLux Airlines existed, a testament to his belief that dignity and respect were non-negotiable. As the jet streaked onward toward Paris through the velvet night, Damien West contemplated his next steps. Justice had only just begun. AeroLux Airlines was his creation, his responsibility. He intended fully to use tonight's experience not just as a lesson for Jessica, but as a turning point for the entire industry. The plane cruised quietly through the dark Atlantic skies, but within the walls of AeroLux Airlines' sleek jet, tension hung heavily in the air. Damien sat quietly, contemplating the night's disturbing events. While externally composed, internally he grappled with frustration. Jessica's open prejudice disturbed him, not merely as a passenger or even as owner, but as a human being who had endured lifelong battles against similar biases. In the dimly lit galley, Mia Collins stood silently, preparing beverages mechanically. Her thoughts raced, anxiety evident in her rapid, shallow breathing. Damien's revelation had changed everything. Jessica's disgraceful behavior was now exposed. But Mia knew the problem ran deeper. AeroLux Airlines was harboring secrets far more insidious than tonight's incident alone. With determination, Mia took a steadying breath and approached Damien cautiously, careful not to intrude on his contemplation. "Mr. West," she began softly, her voice respectful but urgent. Damien looked up slowly, nodding for her to continue. "There's something else you should know." Damien's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Go ahead." Mia lowered her voice, casting a wary glance around the cabin. "This isn't Jessica's first incident. There have been multiple complaints about discrimination against passengers of color, each systematically buried by management." Damien's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Buried?" "Yes," Mia confirmed nervously. "Each time someone complained, Jonathan Wells, head of HR, stepped in. Everything was settled privately. Quiet payoffs, confidentiality agreements, swift reassignments. The public never knew, and Jessica continued unchecked." Damien felt anger simmering beneath his careful composure. Jonathan Wells, a trusted executive, now revealed as an enabler of systemic prejudice. His voice was steady, measured. "And you have evidence of this, Mia?" She nodded quickly, resolute now. "I do. Emails, messages, detailed records. I've kept everything." Damien felt a surge of admiration. "You've been brave," he said firmly, his voice infused with genuine respect. "Thank you for trusting me." Mia breathed deeply, visibly relieved. I couldn't remain silent anymore. Damien nodded solemnly, his decision firm. This ends now. The aircraft touched down smoothly at Charles de Gaulle Airport as dawn illuminated the Parisian horizon. While passengers quietly disembarked, Damien had already contacted AeroLux's Paris offices. An emergency board meeting awaited one he'd personally called. Today, accountability would reign supreme. Within hours, Damien stood calmly before AeroLux's senior management team in a glass-walled executive boardroom overlooking the city's sprawling beauty. Jonathan Wells entered confidently, unaware of the storm awaiting him. He approached Damien with a practiced, diplomatic smile. "Damien, an unexpected visit. What brings you here?" Damien eyed Jonathan coldly, his words precise and unwavering. "We have a crisis. Jessica Harper publicly discriminated against me last night. Imagine my surprise to learn you've protected her before multiple times." Jonathan's expression faltered briefly, his confident mask slipping. "Damien, these matters were handled professionally." "Handled professionally?" Damien's voice sharpened, his eyes piercing through the excuses. "You mean swept conveniently under the rug? Concealed with settlements? You knowingly allowed a toxic culture of racism to persist within my airline?" The board members shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between Damien and Jonathan. Jonathan tried again, his tone conciliatory. "We protected the company's image, our reputation." Damien raised his hand firmly, silencing Jonathan instantly. "You protected your prejudice. Your complicity allowed passengers to be demeaned, dignity violated repeatedly. That is unforgivable." Silence hung thickly, tension nearly tangible. Damien's voice softened slightly, but lost none of its authority. "Jonathan Wells, effective immediately, your employment at AeroLux Airlines is terminated. Your replacement will ensure accountability and integrity qualities you sorely lack." Jonathan's jaw dropped slightly, disbelief etched plainly on his face. His polished exterior cracked, exposing bitter resentment beneath. "Damien, this is outrageous. I've dedicated years." "You've dedicated years," Damien interjected sharply, "to protecting a system rooted in discrimination. Leave now. Security will escort you out." Jonathan stared, face flushed with humiliation, anger, and finally, defeat. He exited silently, dignity shattered. Damien turned resolutely to the remaining board members. "This airline's culture changes immediately. Anyone complicit in prejudice leaves today. Zero tolerance from now on. AeroLux Airlines will embody respect, equality, and genuine inclusivity. If you can't commit fully, follow Jonathan out the door. The room remained silent for a beat. Then, as if collectively understanding the gravity of the moment, nods of affirmation spread quietly around the table. The atmosphere shifted subtly from tension to determination. By evening, Damien stood calmly at the podium within a crowded Paris conference hall. Media cameras trained closely upon him, microphones capturing every nuance of his voice. Mia stood near, supportive yet humble, courage clearly displayed in her stance. AeroLux's scandal was public, and the world awaited Damien's response. His voice carried strong, clear, authoritative, yet deeply human. What happened aboard our airline last night was not isolated. AeroLux Airlines tolerated prejudice subtle and overt for far too long. That ends now. Reporters scribbled rapidly. Cameras flashed incessantly. Jessica Harper and Jonathan Wells no longer represent AeroLux. They represented the worst of us: prejudice, arrogance, privilege. They have been removed, not quietly, but openly, publicly. Their departure signals our commitment to absolute transparency and accountability. Damien paused, allowing the weight of his words to resonate fully. Let this message ring clear. Dignity is never negotiable. Respect is never optional. No matter who you are, where you come from, or what you look like, you deserve respect. Basic human dignity. AeroLux Airlines will embody these values from this day forward. The room erupted into applause, cameras capturing Mia's quietly proud expression, the powerful conviction shining in Damien's eyes. AeroLux's transformation had begun publicly, irreversibly. Days after Damien's public address in Paris, AeroLux Airlines underwent a profound transformation. News of Jonathan Wells and Jessica Harper's dismissal resonated worldwide, sparking intense conversations about hidden discrimination, corporate accountability, and the courage needed to confront injustice openly. Jessica closed her apartment door behind her, the silence heavy and accusing. She leaned against it, eyes shut tightly. The harsh whispers she'd overheard from strangers replayed mercilessly in her mind, each word cutting deeper into her pride. "Is this who I've become?" she whispered bitterly into the darkness. "Someone so blinded by prejudice that I can't even recognize myself?" Jessica, now stripped of her career, prestige, and pride, found herself alone in her modest apartment, surrounded by memories of a status she'd valued above decency. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls and messages, anger, disappointment, threats, and criticism. Shame enveloped her, isolating her far more than any physical walls ever could. Earlier that day, standing silently in a calf line, Jessica overheard whispered judgments clearly directed at her, their disgust palpable. For the first time, she felt the sting of humiliation she herself had inflicted on others. Her heart twisted painfully. Was this how Damien had felt? Jessica's breathing quickened as a profound sense of shame flooded her, washing away the last traces of defensive arrogance. On a rainy afternoon, she reluctantly opened the door to Mia Collins. Jessica expected accusation and disdain, but Mia's expression revealed only quiet resolve. "Why are you here, Mia?" Jessica asked bitterly, unable to mask her vulnerability. "Haven't I lost enough already?" Mia shook her head gently, stepping into the modest space. Her tone was steady, compassionate, yet firm. "I'm here because you need to understand what you did, not just to Damien, but to everyone you've mistreated." Jessica slumped onto her couch, shoulders defeated. "I never saw myself as racist, Mia. I truly believed I was just upholding standards. But now, everything's different. I see it clearly, painfully." Mia's voice softened, empathetic, but unwavering. "Admitting it is only the start. What matters is what you do next." Jessica met Mia's gaze, eyes filled with genuine remorse and confusion. "But how can I possibly make amends? I can't undo what I've done." "No," Mia agreed quietly, "but you can help ensure others don't repeat your mistakes." Jessica considered this carefully, her pride dissolving into humility. Redemption would not erase her past, but perhaps it could heal others' futures. That night, alone again, Jessica stood silently before the mirror. Her reflection appeared unfamiliar, worn, humbled. "You can't undo this," she whispered fiercely to her reflection. "But maybe you can rebuild something from the ruins." In that quiet moment, Jessica made a silent promise to herself and to those she'd wronged that she would never be that person again. Weeks later, Damien stood in AeroLux's gleaming headquarters, observing his teams diligently executing new inclusivity protocols. Mia was now head of a newly formed Equity and Integrity Division. Under her leadership, workshops, education programs, and transparent grievance policies flourished. AeroLux, once wounded by prejudice, emerged as an industry model of genuine inclusion. Damien watched Mia confidently addressing her team, her voice firm, inspiring. He smiled, subtly. Pride mingled with admiration. Mia had become a beacon of courage, transforming personal risk into lasting change. Later that day, Mia approached Damien's office, quietly knocking at his door. He welcomed her warmly. "You've done incredible work, Mia." "It's only possible because you stood up publicly, Mr. West," Mia responded modestly. "Your bravery forced everyone to listen." Damien's eyes grew thoughtful. It wasn't bravery alone. It was necessity. Silence would have made me complicit. Mia nodded thoughtfully, carefully choosing her next words. Jessica reached out. She wants to publicly acknowledge her mistakes, to speak openly about the culture she contributed to. I believe she's sincere. Damien considered this seriously, weighing skepticism against possibility. Redemption could indeed be a powerful tool. "Arrange it," he said firmly. "True change requires courage, even from those who caused harm." Weeks passed. Backstage, Jessica's heart pounded erratically. Her pride whispered urgently for her to run, to hide, to protect the remnants of her dignity. Yet another voice, stronger now, spoke clearly within her. "This isn't about you anymore. This is about every passenger you mistreated. This is your moment to choose courage over comfort." With trembling hands, she stepped forward onto the stage. In a packed auditorium filled with AeroLux employees, media, and influential industry leaders, Jessica stood on stage. Her appearance was humble, demeanor subdued but determined. Cameras captured her vulnerability, her courage in facing her shame directly. "I stand here," Jessica began softly, yet clearly, "as someone who failed profoundly. My biases were subtle but devastating. They allowed me to dismiss the dignity and humanity of others." She paused, voice steadying with resolve. "I regret deeply the pain I caused, not only to Mr. West, but to countless passengers whose experiences I invalidated through ignorance and arrogance. Today, I choose accountability. I choose to admit openly my role in perpetuating discrimination. My career is gone, and deservedly so. But if my public acknowledgement can prevent even one person from repeating my mistakes, then facing this humiliation openly is my obligation." Applause rose slowly at first, building into a powerful acknowledgement, not of her past actions, but her present courage. Damien stood silently at the side, watching Jessica confront her past, turning shame into purpose. Forgiveness was complex, but growth was undeniable. Months later, AeroLux Airlines flourished, its reputation reshaped completely. Damien's decisive actions, coupled with Mia's unwavering advocacy, transformed not only the airline, but the entire industry landscape. Competitors followed AeroLux's lead, establishing stronger anti-discrimination policies and transparent accountability mechanisms. Mia became an influential advocate for racial equality, regularly speaking at global forums. Her courage inspired thousands, her message clear and resonant. Dignity was non-negotiable. Damien West, still privately humble, yet now publicly respected, watched as AeroLux Airlines became synonymous with integrity and respect. Quietly, he reflected on the journey. It began with humiliation, but concluded with redemption, courage, and profound change. One evening, overlooking Paris from his hotel suite balcony, Damien considered all that had unfolded. The city below glittered brightly, yet Damien's thoughts were brighter still, reflecting upon humanity's capacity for growth, accountability, and genuine change. His phone buzzed gently, Mia sending him a short message. "Thank you for showing me what courage truly means. Our work continues." Damien smiled softly, typing his reply quickly. "Together, Mia. Courage is collective. Thank you for teaching me that." His gaze returned thoughtfully to the city lights. Damien knew battles against prejudice were never truly over. Yet tonight, hope prevailed strongly within him, born of witnessing genuine transformation firsthand. He understood clearly now. True respect required unyielding courage, honesty, and vigilance. It required the willingness to confront one's biases, to dismantle prejudice without hesitation, no matter the discomfort or cost. And AeroLux Airlines, his creation, his responsibility, would forever exemplify this essential truth.